你又驚咩？
唔係啊，
唔係做咩騎住我？
我以為你中意咋，對唔住啊。
小鬼
公公啊，玻璃樽裏邊裝住啲一粉粉嘅咩嚟啊？
邊？
Hey guys, it's Will, it's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome and thank you for finding us. I hope this video finds you well. Huge shout out to our patrons who keep this channel running, whose amazing contributions really, so many of the movies that you see me reviewing, I'm reviewing because we have the money that we get from Patreon that enables me to pick up these releases. So huge shout out to those people. It's a great community over there. I really like engaging with people in Patreon and doing the exclusive content for over there. What are we here to talk about today? Let's get right into it. Hell to the yes. It is the Eureka Entertainment. This is a double feature release. It comes with Royal Tramp 1 and 2. So you get like 4 hours of movie in here. Maximum Stephen Chow, maximum Wong Jing. I am reviewing just the first film today because that's all I've had a chance to watch recently. I have been so busy recently. If you've been keeping up with in our Facebook group or some of the community posts I've been doing on YouTube or with Twitter and stuff like that, I've just been so busy, work stuff, personal stuff, just so busy. I've been watching the movies as best I can, but then I'm having trouble finding time to record, which is why I'm on my lunch break in the back of my car making these broke-ass videos without cool locations and all that stuff. So it is what it is, but we're going to jump right into this video. Like I said, I'm talking about just the first film. So this was written and directed by Wong Jing. It was released on the 30th of July, 1992, and it ran for months. It was out until the 16th of September, 1992. It was a huge hit, which Frank Chang talks about in the commentary on here. So you can hear the full extent of the massive kind of cultural impact of this film if you listen to that commentary track. But it made $40.9 million at the Hong Kong box office. It stars Stephen Chow, Charlotte Chung, Derek Wan is in this film. Eng Man Tat, who's incredible in this movie. I love his performance in this movie. Ching Mi Yao is in this movie. Elvis Choi, Sandra Damien Lau. And then worth noting that David Chung was one of the directors of photography / cinematographers on this movie. He directed Magnificent Warriors, Royal Warriors. As a cinematographer, he worked with Choi Hark. He worked with Wong Jing, obviously. He worked with Ringo Lam, some of the best of the best. And then Joe Chan was the other director of photography who also worked with a lot of really great names in the business. This Eureka release came out the 13th of November, 2023, so I am a little late in reviewing it, and I apologize for that. We did have Thanksgiving here in the United States, which was a holiday which kept me kind of busy with kids and family and stuff like that. To give you a plot overview, this movie is... This is a really funny movie. You can see me laughing already. The setup is preposterous. So it's an interesting movie, actually. Well, I'll get into my thoughts later. Let me give you a basic plot synopsis. Stephen Chow plays this guy who's just kind of this goofy guy who goes around telling stories, and he's kind of like a comedian / storyteller / I don't know exactly how you would describe his profession, but he goes to public places and he tells outlandish tales, and he's kind of like a traveling, almost like a bard or a jester type of guy, right? And he kind of by accident gets conscripted into this secret society that's trying to overthrow the government, and they send him undercover. The setup is really funny. They're like, we need a volunteer to go undercover to the royal court, the court of the emperor, so that we can plan to overthrow the government. And Stephen Chow is somehow gets basically volunteered to do this, and he's kind of wait, what? So he has to go undercover to the royal court, and it's an interesting movie because on the one hand you have a serious film about court intrigue and government corruption and all these people backstabbing each other, political drama. And then on the other hand, you have Stephen Chow in the middle of it being this totally preposterous comedic character where it's really, really funny. The best thing that I thought of that I could compare this movie to, and this is probably gonna sound like a bit of a weird point of comparison, but I will explain myself and hopefully it will make sense. The best point of comparison for me with this film was Pirates of the Caribbean. Why do I say that? Because Pirates of the Caribbean is a relatively serious period piece, high budget, really well made adventure story, at the center of which is a comedic character who brings a lot of comedic hijinks and is really silly and is kind of a fish out of water thing, but is also a lot more clever than they seem to be, right? So the Stephen Chow character is kind of like Jack Sparrow in a way, and the world around him is this more serious, violent world with a lot of high stakes and stuff like that. And this is just a really, really well-made movie. Like the bottom line for me is that this is a movie that is really made at like the highest level of the craft. Like the cinematography is great, looks incredible, the costumes are amazing, the sets are amazing, the script is fantastic, it's really well directed, the acting is incredible, the cast is amazing, the music is great. Like it's like a blockbuster, mainstream, big budget film where every single person in every creative role was at the top of their game. And it's just great, amazing, extremely well made, very creative, like populist mainstream entertainment. It's very funny, but it's a very good adventure film too. So let me show you off the physical release. You get the slipcase here. So I'm getting a little glare off of, I apologize for that. And then we have this artwork when we pop off the slipcase. There's Stephen Chow. And there's the back. And then we pop that open and there is a booklet there. And then we get the 2 discs with the films there and there. And then if you want to see the other artwork there, it's for the second film, which you can see there. And here is the booklet. So there's kind of just like basic credit information about the film and the poster. And then information about the second film and the poster there. And then we get the essay, which is called The Court Jester, Royal Tramp, Stephen Chow Gets Classical by James Oliver. And I mean, it talks about the film. It kind of goes into that era in Stephen Chow's career. And, you know, the context of the film, this is based on a novel, a historical novel. So it goes into a little bit about, like, you know, the context of the writer of the novel and the popularity of the novel. And also Stephen Chow's just, like, insane popularity at that time. And, you know, humor in Hong Kong and, like, that kind of stuff. And I'm getting a lot of glare on the booklet here. But, wait, hold on. I have to do it. It smells delightful. I like the smell of paper. Okay, so let me get into my thoughts on the film, and then I will also give you a little bit of information about the bonus material that is on here, and then I will be out of your hair. So like I said, I mean, to me, the bottom line of this movie really is that this is a good movie. It's kind of like a PG-13 style movie. There's more violence in classic Hong Kong fashion, right? Like the themes of the movie, the kind of overall tone of the film, it feels like a PG-13, like kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, like I said, blockbuster period piece type of film. It does get pretty violent in a couple places where like the bad guys like literally kicking people's heads off at one point and like people's bodies are being ripped apart. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. But the overall tone is like the feel of this kind of just like big budget populist entertainment, like PG-13, like straight down the middle style film. It's really well written. And one of the things that I appreciated about this movie is that you have a lot of really great comedic hijinks. You have this really funny central premise of the setup. And this is like a tiny spoiler, but not really. But as he goes into the palace, the Stephen Chow character ends up accidentally, this is again, it's like it's such ridiculous comedic hijinks. He accidentally befriends the emperor, not knowing that it's him. And then he befriends the emperor's sister, and then it turns out the emperor's sister has an extreme libido. It's like, that was a really funny subplot to me of like the very horny sister of the emperor who's trying to mack it on the Stephen Chow character, and like the mom of the emperor who's like, you gotta stop being so horny all the time. Like it's very silly. There's another scene in this movie that cracked me up where there's all these penises in jars, like severed penises in like formaldehyde. I don't want to ruin the punchline of the scene because it's really funny. Suffice it to say, there's a scene with a bunch of dicks in jars that cracked me up. But like, you know, like the court intrigue aspect of this film is really well done. And this is not a film that, you know, like a lot of times when you see these movies that are kind of like parodies or satires, or where they take an outlandish character and put them in a serious situation, the serious part of the film is kind of an afterthought. And what we're really focused on is the humor and mining the jokes out of the situation. Here, there is a lot of attention paid to the serious aspects of the plot that this outlandish character finds himself stuck within. So there's like all these betrayals, and characters have all these secrets, and there's constant intrigue happening, and like you'll learn one secret and then you'll discover there's another secret lurking behind another door over here that complicates this other thing over here. And like the kind of like the chess game of setting up and moving through the motions of the plot, the characters, and how that all unfolds is really, really well done. This is a very well put together film, so that it's not even though it is very silly comedy. It's not just a vehicle for stupidity, right, in terms of stupid humor. It's a good film outside of that, and you can watch it for entertainment on that level. Now, I will say, given my love of goofball humor and stupid jokes, there are sections of this film where it actually veers off into the serious stuff, and like the whole tone of the film gets serious adventure, court intrigue, you know, like backstabbing. It gets into that, and it loses some of the humor, and I found those to be the less interesting passages of the film, even though they're really well done, because I'm so taken with the goofiness of the humor that I'm like, there's this other scene where so this is so funny to me. Actually, this is a perfect scene to talk about, because this scene shows you how goofy this movie is, but also how intelligent it is. There's a scene where Stephen Chow is talking to the guy who's the head of like this underground secret society that he accidentally joins, right? And the guy basically says, Stephen Chow's like talking to the guy about, they have this like cult fringe religion, and that's how they like conscript members, but their goal is to overthrow the government, right? It's called the Heaven and Earth Society, I think. And the guy who's in charge of the society kind of like pulls Stephen Chow aside, and he's like, all the smartest people end up working for the government, so what you're left with are stupid people, and you have to, basically all we really want, like we being the leaders of the group, is like women and power and money, but we can't tell that to these people because they'll think we're corrupt like the government, so we make up like nonsense religion and get them to believe it so that we can make them do our bidding. That's essentially what he says, right? So it's really funny because of the way this guy delivers this monologue and the way that he and Stephen Chow are talking. It's very funny, and yet it reveals this kind of fundamental underlying truth of like the inherent corruption of all systems that are using power to bring people over to their side so that the people who are in charge of the systems can have wealth, sex, power, all these things. And, you know, and like the way that people use beliefs and things like, you know, patriotism and religion and all these other things are used by powerful people as tools to control other people so that they can perpetuate their own power. So there's this very insightful truth within this scene, but it's just a very funny goofball scene within the movie that's delivered really well, and there's a lot of funny jokes in it. I mean, there's just like a lot of penis jokes in this movie, which is just, that are just really funny to me because I really like that kind of stuff. There's some really wild fight scenes too, and this is like, you know, definitely in that era of like, in 1992 was like, you know, the same era as like Once Upon a Time in China, and like I think Burning Paradise was 94. So that era, you know, there's a lot of these like period piece films and these epic films that take place in China in the past, and that have like wire work, and like the fight scenes in this film are very good, and they're very much in keeping with the styles of fighting that were popular at the time. And that could be a good way for me to segue into one other thing I do want to say though, is that I could not believe how quickly this movie moved. This is 110 minutes, which is actually relatively long for a Hong Kong film from that era. It's almost 2 hours. And when the movie ended, I said out loud to myself, wait, is the movie over? Like, it was so fast. I was like, there's no way I've been watching this movie for almost 2 hours. Like, it just moves like gangbusters. So you will not be bored at any point throughout this movie. And if you just love like big mainstream fun adventure movies, and if you love really silly, goofy, crass humor like I do, you will very much enjoy this film. So I talked about the fight scenes. I think that might be a good segue into the bonus material. There's a 9-minute long Wong Jing interview on the disc, and he talks about one of the fight scenes in particular and kind of breaks down why they did it the way they did it and stuff like that. But I mean, to continue my kind of trend of what I'm talking about in this review and the way that I think this movie is both very funny and goofy and entertaining while also being really intelligent and insightful and well put together. In his interview, Wong Jing does like really interesting analyses of like the themes of the film, the structure of the film, the way that the characters are built individually, but also the way that they relate to one another and how that ties into story structure and stuff like that. He also talks about religion and how religion works differently at different levels of education, and how religion is used by powerful religious institutions to communicate to people of different levels of education. Like really interesting, in-depth stuff that is covered within the film that he's thinking about while he's making this film. Just again, reiterating the idea that though this movie is dumb, it is also very intelligent. So what else do we have for bonus material? We have a commentary track, Mike Leader and Arna Venema. Hell yeah. Always really fun to hear their thoughts on films like this. So the Heaven and Earth Society, that's the secret society in this film, still exists. And Mike and Arna talk about like the history of it, and they talk about like its association with triad groups and stuff like that. They talk about the popularity of Stephen Chow, the evolution of his career. I always love hearing Arna on these commentary tracks because Arna is a filmmaker, so it's really interesting to hear his insights as a filmmaker. They talk about like the sound design on this film, which is always really interesting to hear, like, you know, someone's thoughts who actually practices the craft, like talking about how they've done certain craft elements of the film. They also talk about the various versions of the film that exist, like the different edits of it. And then I wrote down a quote that I thought was really fantastic from their commentary track. Oh, also worth mentioning, they talk about the puns. You know, there's like a lot of puns in Cantonese that are in films like this. They talk about that. They talk about profanity and how profanity is used in Hong Kong cinema and different ratings you'll get based on the type of profanity you use. But this is the quote that I wrote down that I thought was fantastic. You rarely see a penis POV in mainstream movies. Like I said, there's a lot of penis jokes in this movie. And yes, there is a dick point of view shot in Royal Tramp. And I think that's everything that's on here. And, oh no, there is some other commentary track. These guys I never heard of before, Frank and FJ. Frank Jing, I think the D is silent, and FJ DeSanto. Don't know who they are, but there's a commentary track on here from them too. And so FJ does the intro, which is interesting because I had been told, like I said, we don't really know who these guys are, but I had been told that Frank usually does the intros. And so it was interesting to hear FJ do the intro. But then, you know, Frank explains the Chinese title of the film and talks about how this was shot back to back with the second film and they were released just a few months apart from one another. A lot of the cultural references that are in the film and that are used in Stephen Chow's humor that are completely lost on people like me as Westerners watching this film. Frank talks about the novel and the differences between the novel and the movie. They talk about the different comedy styles between Jackie Chan and Stephen Chow, which is really interesting, like an analysis of that. And one thing that's interesting actually is when they're talking about that, they also talk about Tony Leung. Tony Leung and Stephen Chow are really good friends, apparently, and they know each other really, really well, and they came up together through TVB and stuff like that. And while they're talking about Tony Leung and Jackie, they talk about Gorgeous, the Jackie Chan film Gorgeous, and how it's a much better film than Drunken Master 2, which is interesting because it's like they're talking about Royal Tramp, but they go off on this kind of thing talking about how Gorgeous is like this really kind of brilliant 10 out of 10 film. And Drunken Master 2 is kind of like overrated and how they would much rather see like a movie like Gorgeous on a list of like top 10 Jackie Chan movies than a movie like Drunken Master 2. So it's a really interesting discussion there. And then FJ, actually a really interesting little bit where FJ talks about like the post-Bruce Lee era and how you had a lot of guys like Jackie and Sammo coming out of Peking Opera. But then when you get to the generation after that, what you're seeing is a lot of the people who came out of TVB and like television training programs and acting schools and television program, like graduating from a television training program to be in a television show and then graduating from that to doing feature films. It's a really interesting little kind of discussion of the history and the evolution of the films. So that's the FJ DeSanto and Frank Jing commentary track. Yeah, this is a fantastic release. Like I said, I have not watched the second film, but just the disc for the first film alone is worth, I think, the price of admission, and you get both the films and all this great bonus material, 2 commentary tracks, interview with the director, great little essay. It's Royal Tramp. It really cracked me up. It's a really fun adventure film out from Eureka Entertainment in this double pack. My name is Will. I thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.